Okay, so you've been sending us some interesting sources lately about gathering information for projects.
Yeah, lots of questions about how to approach research in general.
Right, and that Amsterdam trip you're planning really got you thinking about the best ways to learn about a new place.
Absolutely, and it seems like a lot of you are working on projects that require some serious information gathering.
Yeah, so for this deep dive, we're going to equip you with a whole toolkit of strategies.
We'll be exploring a ton of resources from libraries to the vast online world, and even how to conduct really insightful interviews.
We're basically going to help you become research ninjas, ready to tackle any project with confidence.
Think of it this way. We're not just pointing you to sources.
We're giving you the skills to evaluate and understand information like a pro.
Exactly, drawing on all the insights and guidance from this awesome chapter.
Okay, so let's start with something simple but often overlooks your own knowledge and experiences.
It's amazing how much we already know and how that can be a fantastic foundation for any research project.
Right, we often communicate best about things we're already passionate about or familiar with.
Think about your hobbies, your work, the things that really get you going.
That existing knowledge can be incredibly valuable.
The chapter actually has a great example of this with the student who gave a presentation on national parks.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It wasn't just dry facts and figures, it was her personal experience that brought the parks to life.
Yeah, she described the landscape so vividly you could almost feel the fresh air and see the rolling hills and majestic peaks.
Exactly, and she talked about the people she met, the families having picnics, the hikers on the trails.
It made the information so much more relatable and meaningful because it was filtered through her own experience.
Right, it wasn't just data, it was her lived reality, and that gave the topic a real sense of importance.
Now, here's a key point though. While your own knowledge is super valuable, it shouldn't be your only source.
Exactly. To really build credibility and present a well-rounded perspective, you need to branch out.
You want to back up your personal insights with solid external research.
Think of your experience as the spark, the thing that ignites your interest, but to fan those flames.
You need to explore the wider world of information, and that's where libraries come in.
The library, even in this digital age, it's still an incredible resource, and sometimes we forget that.
It's more than just books, too. It's a whole ecosystem of information and expert guidance.
And one of the most valuable but often underutilized assets is the expertise of librarians.
I like to call them research superheroes.
Uh-huh, yeah, that's a great way to put it. They can guide you through the maze of information, help you find exactly what you need.
And the chapter makes a great point about not being afraid to ask for their help.
Yeah, some people feel like they're bothering librarians. But think of it this way. If you had a health concern, you wouldn't hesitate to ask a doctor, right?
Exactly. Librarians are the doctors of information. They're there to help you navigate the world of research.
So what kind of amazing help can they offer beyond just pointing you to the right section?
Well, they can help you refine your search terms, identify specific databases you might not even know exist.
Oh, right, those hidden gems.
Exactly. And they can even help you evaluate the credibility of different sources. It's like having a personalized research assistant.
That's incredible. So once you're ready to dive into the collection, the library catalog is your go-to tool.
It might seem basic, but it's your key to unlocking everything the library has to offer.
Books, periodicals, which are basically magazines and journals, films, music, even digital resources, it's all in there.
And you can search in so many ways by author title, subject keywords.
What I love about the catalog is that it doesn't just tell you if the library has something, but where to find it,
Right, it gives you that special code, the call number.
which can seem like a secret language at first.
But it's actually like an address for the book.
Yeah.
Tells you exactly where it lives on the shelves.
So if you're looking for a book on, let's say, ancient Roman history, the call number will guide you to the section where all those books are grouped together.
It's like a map to the treasure you're seeking.
Exactly. And the catalog also tells you if the book is currently available or checked out, so you don't waste time searching for something that's not there.
Now let's talk about time savers, those amazing resources called reference works.
These are like concentrated doses of knowledge, readily available information on a huge range of topics.
We've all heard of general encyclopedias like Encyclopedia Britannica, but the chapter also highlights specialized encyclopedias.
Oh, right. Those are gold mines for specific subjects.
Exactly if you're researching, say, the history of jazz music.
You'd find much more detailed and relevant information in a specialized encyclopedia on music history.
Than you would in a general encyclopedia. It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
The chapter mentions some great examples, like the African American Encyclopedia for in-depth information on that rich history.
Or the Encyclopedia of Religion, if you're exploring different belief systems.
And for the science and tech folks, the McGraw-Hill Encyclopedia of Science and Technology, it's a classic.
Now, if you need up-to-date facts and figures, yearbooks are your best friend.
Yearbooks. Oh, yeah, those are great for getting the latest stats and information.
They're published annually, and they compile a ton of data on current events, economics, demographics, all sorts of things.
It would take forever to gather all that information yourself. So yearbooks are like a shortcut.
The chapter specifically mentions Facts on File and the World Almanac and Book of Facts as really valuable resources.
But what about those times when you need a powerful quote to add weight to your argument or spice up your presentation?
That's where quotation books come in.
Quotation books are like treasure chests of memorable sayings and witty remarks.
The classic one is Bartlett's Familiar Quotations. It's a massive collection of quotes from all sorts of sources,
But they're also more specialized collections.
like the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations, which focuses on British and American quotes,
Or the New Quotable Woman, which highlights the words of influential women.
and even Ancient Echoes, Native American Words of Wisdom, which collects the wisdom and insights of indigenous cultures.
It's amazing how many different types of quotation books exist.
And if you're researching individuals, biographical aids are essential.
Biographical aids, yeah, those are like mini biographies packed with information on notable figures.
Who is probably the most famous one? It comes in various editions like International Who's Who and Who's Who in America,
Right, but they're also specialized biographical dictionaries.
like Contemporary Black Biography, which focuses on influential Black figures,
Or Dictionary of Hispanic Biography, which highlights notable Hispanic individuals.
and Who's Who among Asian Americans, which showcases the achievements of Asian Americans.
These specialized resources are so important for recognizing and celebrating the contributions of diverse communities.
Now for staying on top of current events and finding scholarly articles.
Newspaper and periodical databases are indispensable.
These digital tools are lifesavers. They let you search through thousands of publications, from popular magazines to academic journals to major news outlets.
You can search by subject, keyword, date range, all sorts of filters.
And you'll often find abstracts, which are like short summaries of the articles.
Super helpful for getting a quick overview.
But the chapter has a really important warning. Never ever cite an article based solely on the abstract,
That's a rookie mistake. Always locate and read the full article.
because the abstract is just a taste. It doesn't give you the full context or the nuances of the author's argument.
The chapter highlights some specific databases that are really powerful.
ProQuest, for example, it indexes a massive number of periodicals and newspapers, often with those helpful abstracts.
And LexisNexis Academic, which provides access to a broader range of sources, including legal documents and transcripts.
And World News Digest, which is amazing for historical research. It has news articles going all the way back to 1940.
So you can literally travel through time with these databases.
Now, for those really in-depth research projects, particularly in academic settings,
We have academic databases. These focus on peer-reviewed scholarly work from universities and research institutions.
peer-reviewed basically means that the research has been vetted by other experts in the field.
Right? It's like a quality control stamp, ensuring that the information is reliable and credible.
The chapter mentions a few key academic databases.
Academic OneFile, which has a huge range of disciplines covered.
JSTOR, which is great for historical research, with its archive of academic journals and primary sources.
And Google Scholar, which is super user-friendly and allows you to search across a wide range of scholarly literature.
So as you can see, even in the age of the internet, libraries are still powerhouses of information.
They offer curated, organized, and often very specialized resources that you just won't find easily online.
And don't forget the librarians. They're like expert guides who can save you tons of time and frustration.
Now let's switch gears and talk about the other behemoth of information, the internet.
The internet, the wild, wild west of information.
Haha, right? It's often called the world's largest library.
But it's a library with no central desk, no librarians, no organized catalog, and no built-in quality control.
That's a crucial difference. Anyone can publish anything online.
So you need to be extra careful and approach internet research with a critical eye.
The chapter wisely advises using the internet to supplement, not replace, traditional library research.
It's great for accessing very recent news articles or finding diverse perspectives through blogs and forums.
But you always need to double-check the information and evaluate the source.
And our main tool for navigating the vastness of the internet is the search engine.
With Google being the king of the hill.
But simply Typing in a general search term can lead to information overload.
You'll get millions of results, most of which might be irrelevant or unreliable.
That's why it's so important to develop a strategic approach to your online searching.
Be specific. Think carefully about what you're actually trying to find.
The chapter gives a helpful example using payday loans.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
A general search for payday loans will probably just lead you to payday loan companies.
Not very helpful if you're trying to research the pros and cons of payday loans.
Exactly. But if you refine your search with more specific terms,
Like dangers of payday loans or hidden costs of payday loans.
or even pose a question like, what are the financial risks of taking out a payday loan?
You'll get much more focused and relevant results.
It's like going from a giant haystack to a neatly organized toolbox.
And Google even offers ways to filter your results by type of resource.
You can narrow it down to news articles, images, videos, blog posts, even books.
So don't be afraid to play around with different combinations of search terms and filters.
Now, beyond the general search engines, there's a whole universe of specialized research resources online.
These are often curated and provide more focused information.
Think about government websites, for example. They're a treasure trove of official documents and publications.
The chapter mentions USA.gov as a great starting point.
It's a central portal for accessing all sorts of information from the U.S. government.
And for statistical data, you can't beat the United States Census Bureau website.
It's a gold mine of information on demographics, economics, housing, education, you name it.
The chapter even shows a figure with population data as an example.
And then there's the World Factbook, which, despite its name, is actually a really valuable resource.
Yeah, it's published by the CIA, but it provides detailed information on every country in the world.
You can find data on everything from geography and climate to government and economy.
What's something unexpected you might find in the World Factbook?
Well, you might find information on a country's infrastructure, like its transportation systems or its energy sources.
Oh,
Or
interesting.
you might find data on its environmental issues or its military capabilities. It's quite comprehensive.
Now we can't talk about online research without addressing the elephant in the room, Wikipedia.
Wikipedia, it's huge, it's popular, it's often the first place people go for information.
But how reliable is it really? That's the million-dollar question.
The chapter acknowledges that Wikipedia has had its share of accuracy issues in the past.
But it also points out that the reliability of major articles has improved significantly over time.
This is largely due to the collaborative editing process
Hmm?
and the fact that articles are constantly being updated and fact-checked.
Right, and articles that are still under development or have potential issues are often flagged, so, to take them with a grain of salt.
But the key takeaway is this: Wikipedia should be treated as a starting point for research, not the final word.
It's great for getting a broad overview, understanding key concepts, and identifying related areas of inquiry.
But you absolutely need to dig deeper and verify the information with more authoritative sources.
What I love about Wikipedia, though, is that it often links to those authoritative sources within the articles.
Right, you'll find footnotes, references, external links to original research, even multimedia resources.
So use Wikipedia to get oriented, and then follow those leads to more credible and in-depth information.
Okay, so we're navigating this vast and sometimes chaotic world of online information.
How do we separate the wheat from the chaff, the credible from the questionable?
The chapter dedicates a whole section to evaluating internet documents, and this is absolutely crucial.
Because unlike libraries, which have curators and librarians to vet the information,
The internet is a free-for-all. Anyone can publish anything.
so the golden rule is don't believe everything you read.
The chapter outlines 3 key criteria for evaluating online information.
Authorship, sponsorship, and recency. Let's break this down.
Authorship is all about who created the content and what are their credentials.
Right. Are they recognized experts in the field? Do they have a track record of accuracy?
Is the information presented objectively, or is there an obvious bias? Finding this information online can be tricky sometimes.
The chapter suggests looking for author biographies within the document or links to their personal or professional websites.
And here's a pro tip. Use Google to search for the author's name and see what else comes up.
You might find their publications, their affiliations, their social media profiles. It can give you a better sense of their credibility.
Now let's talk about sponsorship. Many websites aren't created by individuals, but by organizations.
Right, and in those cases, you need to evaluate the impartiality of the sponsoring organization.
Are they known for objective research, or do they have a particular agenda? Do they have any financial or political biases that might influence the information they present?
The chapter gives some examples of generally reputable organizations.
Like public interest groups like Consumers Union and the American Cancer Society,
Government agencies like the National Archives and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
and think tanks like RAND and Brookings. Although it's important to note that even think tanks can have certain leanings.
Right, they're not always perfectly neutral.
But the chapter also cautions against being fooled by fancy names or official-looking websites.
Always dig a little deeper look for an About Us section to understand the organization's mission, funding, and philosophy.
And if you can't find any information about the author or the sponsor,
That's a red flag. It's best to avoid using that source altogether.
now let's talk about recency. One of the great things about the internet is that it's constantly updated.
You can find breaking news and the latest research.
But you can't assume that all online content is current.
Always look for a copyright date, a publication date, or a date indicating the last revision.
It's usually found at the top or bottom of the web page.
And it's especially important to check the date when you're dealing with statistics.
Never cite statistical information from an undated source.
While dates can sometimes be manipulated if you've already established the credibility of the author and sponsor,
The date provided is usually a good indicator of currency.
if you can't find any date information, it's best to look for a more reliable source.
The chapter then brings all these evaluation criteria together with a practical example.
About a community group trying to develop an early childhood intervention program.
They needed to find trustworthy websites with reliable statistics and expert testimony.
And by applying the criteria we just discussed, they were able to separate the good information from the bad.
Okay, let's shift gears again and talk about a more personal and direct method of gathering information: interviewing.
Interviewing, oh yeah, this is where you get to tap into the expertise and experiences of others firsthand.
It's like being a journalist, gathering insights and perspectives that you won't find in books or articles.
The chapter breaks down the interviewing process into 3 stages: before, during, and after.
And as with any research, thorough preparation is key.
Before you even contact potential interviewees, you need to define the purpose of your interview.
What specific information are you hoping to gain? What questions do you need answered?
Then you need to decide who to interview.
Who are the experts in the field who have firsthand experience with the topic you're researching?
The chapter suggests starting with leaders in organizations related to your topic.
They can often provide a broad overview and point you to other valuable resources.
Once you've identified your ideal interviewees, it's time to arrange the interview.
The chapter has a great tip. Sometimes a direct in-person request can be more effective than an email or phone call.
Especially if you're trying to reach someone who's very busy or gets a lot of email.
Then there's the question of recording the interview.
Recording is great for capturing every detail and ensuring accuracy.
But the chapter wisely advises always taking handwritten notes as a backup.
Because technology can fail, batteries can die, and you don't want to lose all that valuable information.
And most importantly, you must always obtain the interviewee's explicit consent before recording.
It's both an ethical and legal requirement.
Now, perhaps the most crucial part of preparing for an interview is crafting your questions.
This is where you really need to think strategically.
The chapter highlights some types of questions you should avoid,
Like questions that can be easily answered through other research.
or leading questions that subtly push the interviewee toward a particular answer.
Or hostile or loaded questions that can make the interviewee defensive.
You want to ask neutral, open-ended questions that encourage the interviewee to share their thoughts and experiences.
And it's generally a good idea to save any sensitive or challenging questions for later in the interview.
Once you've built rapport and established a comfortable atmosphere,
And always take your list of prepared questions with you to the interview. It helps keep you on track.
okay, so you've done your prep work, you've scheduled the interview, you've got your questions ready.
Now it's showtime. What do you need to do during the interview itself?
First and foremost, be on time and dress appropriately.
It shows respect for the interviewee and their time.
At the beginning of the interview, briefly restate its purpose.
This ensures that everyone's on the same page and understands the goals.
If you're recording the interview, set it up discreetly and make sure the interviewee is comfortable with it.
And remember, even though you have your prepared questions, be flexible and alert.
Conversations rarely follow a strict script, and sometimes the most interesting insights come from unexpected tangents.
Listen attentively, ask clarifying questions if needed.
And don't overstay your welcome. Be mindful of the agreed-upon time limit.
Before you wrap up, thank the interviewee for their time and insights.
And here's an important point. The work doesn't end when the interview is over.
The chapter stresses the importance of reviewing your notes immediately
While the conversation is still fresh in your mind.
because memories fade and details get lost.
The chapter actually shares a funny anecdote about a reporter who misheard shoots cats instead of skeet shooting and Siamese cats
Oh, no.
because he didn't review his notes carefully enough.
That's a good reminder to be thorough and organized.
So go over your notes, highlight key points, identify useful quotes, and make sure everything is clear.
And finally, transcribe your keynotes into a consistent format, integrating them with any other research you've gathered.
This will make it much easier to organize and synthesize all your information when you start writing your paper or preparing your presentation.
Now, the chapter concludes with some really practical tips for making the research process more efficient.
And less overwhelming.
The first and arguably most important tip is start early.
Procrastination is the enemy of good research. Waiting until the last minute can lead to disaster.
Resources might be unavailable. You might not have enough time to schedule interviews.
And you'll end up feeling rushed and stressed.
Research almost always takes longer than you think, so give yourself plenty of time.
Starting early also allows you to process the information you find and see how the pieces of the puzzle fit together.
Another great tip is to create a preliminary bibliography early in the process.
This is basically a working list of all the potential sources you've come across.
Books, articles, websites, interviews, anything that looks promising.
It helps you keep track of everything and ensures that you don't miss any valuable resources.
And speaking of organization, the chapter emphasizes the importance of efficient note-taking.
It tells a cautionary tale about a student whose disorganized notes led to a research meltdown.
She had to start over at the last minute because she couldn't make sense of her own notes.
So the lesson here is take plenty of notes, even if you're not sure if you'll use the information later.
It's better to have too much than not enough.
And always record your notes in a consistent format.
Whether it's from a website, a book, an interview, use the same structure.
Include the note itself, a clear identification of the source, and a concise subject heading.
That subject heading is your key to organization. It helps you categorize and retrieve information later on.
And make sure to create a separate note for each piece of information.
Don't cram everything from one source into a single massive note.
It makes it much harder to review and organize your research later.
Finally, and this is where research becomes more than just gathering facts.
The chapter encourages you to actively think about your materials as you're researching.
Don't just passively absorb information. Engage with it critically and creatively.
Think about the connections between different sources, the questions that arise in your mind.
How does the information you're finding shape your understanding of the topic?
The chapter gives a great example of a student who initially planned to give a speech about wild animals as pets.
But through her research, she realized how problematic the exotic pet trade is.
She learned about the cruel methods of capturing and transporting these animals.
And she shifted her focus to the ethical issues of keeping wild animals in captivity.
This is a perfect illustration of how thoughtful research can lead to new insights and even change your perspective.
So even if you don't completely change your initial ideas,
engaging with your research in a critical and thoughtful way will make the entire process more productive and rewarding.
So to wrap things up, effective information gathering involves a combination of strategies.
Leveraging your own knowledge.
Utilizing the vast resources of libraries and the expertise of librarians.
Navigating the internet strategically and critically.
And mastering the art of interviewing.
And remember, start early. Create a preliminary bibliography.
And take organized and thorough notes from the very beginning.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder.
Think about a time when you felt truly knowledgeable and well-prepared on a particular topic.
What information gathering methods did you use?
And how might the strategies and resources we've discussed in this deep dive enhance your approach next time?
Whether you're researching for a school project, a work presentation, or just for your own personal growth.
The ability to gather and evaluate information effectively is a crucial skill in today's world.
It empowers you to become a more informed, engaged, and successful individual.
So go forth and research with confidence.
And never stop learning.